Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So one by one, we're going to slowly go through the 2018 Senate election results, individual states, and just go through the results and what exactly it means for the future of the state itself in terms of its political stance. So the state of North Dakota, solidly Republican, or so it may seem. We're looking at a 2018 Senate election where Kevin Cramer won by more than 10%. And really all you can say at this point is, wow. Looking at this margin, that is a phenomenal margin for a Republican candidate against a Democratic incumbent. However, there are many points where during this election campaign, Heitkamp definitely did mess up. And not to draw away from the attention and the victory that the Republicans had, but Heitkamp likely could have narrowed this margin up. But I'm not saying she could have won. We're looking at a state itself that is very, very Republican at heart. The state of North Dakota, known for its Republican identity, those 3 electoral votes that come at the top of the 9 p.m. poll closings that go for every single Republican candidate. In fact, the last time it was really a swing state was 2008, John McCain versus Barack Obama. Now, that may not seem like it was too long ago, around 10 years ago, but still, since then, it has consistently gotten more Republican since the 2018 presidential election. North Dakota used to have a Democratic senator, and his name was Kent Conrad. Heitkamp replaced him in 2012 by winning by 50.2% of the vote in the state of North Dakota. She has now lost her re-election campaign with 44.6% of the vote. So she did do better than most Democrats in the state of North Dakota. So that's something you have to give her credit for. But looking at the numbers itself, Kevin Cramer did phenomenal. Looking at this county map, based off what the 2012 county map looked like, this was 2018. This was 2012. Clearly a lot more blue on that map, and the areas that were red were a little bit less red. Looking at the only 2 counties that were deep red, now we have a number of more counties that were solidly Republican. Looking at the numbers here, again, coming down to the areas that were population centers, quote-unquote population centers, areas where she did pretty well in, they were only narrowly in her column, 53%. Compared to looking at this map, we had numbers that were possibly in the 60s for a Democrat in a very Republican state. The last time she won again was 2012. President Barack Obama was on the ballot for the presidential election, which likely led her into her victory. Even though North Dakota may be a Republican state, they still had a Democratic incumbent from 2006 that many people did in fact love. Kent Conrad consistently won every single one of his elections, and now it has come back to the Democratic Party. This will likely be the last time a Democrat is actually contested for a North Dakota state race, considering there could be a governor race, probably not. Senate race, probably not in the future, and then the House race, probably not. So right now, looking at the Senate results, Heitkamp is probably the last Democrat to come from the Senate in North Dakota for a very long time. So Kevin Cramer, right now, actually incumbent representative from the state of North Dakota. Now Heitkamp is the incumbent Democrat from senator from the state of North Dakota. Now they're not going to switch. Heitkamp is going to be out of Congress completely. Kevin Cramer is just going to go from representative to senator. And what's actually interesting is that North Dakota only has 1 representative and 2 senators. So that is very interesting. But obviously, senators typically have more power in terms of their voting. Overall, 322,000 votes. If we look at the year 2012, let's see exactly how many votes we had. I cannot do quick math. 161 plus 158. I'm assuming that's around 300,000. There may, in fact, no, that is definitely not around 200,000. So I'm just going to round up to 160 and 160. That's 320,000 votes, I guess you could say. And there were 322,000 votes in the Senate elections in North Dakota. So I guess turnout was around the same in terms of voting, and that's phenomenal for a midterm year. But again, still a Republican state, so when more voters turn out, there's typically more Republican voters. But if we go back to the polling data, this is why this race could have been contested. 2012, the last poll administered was November 2nd to November 5th. That showed Rick Berg, the incumbent United States representative at the time, winning by 2% over Heitkamp. Unfortunately for Heitkamp, the polling was not at all like that. Yes, Kevin Cramer was the incumbent representative. We're seeing very, very similar things, but he led by 9%. The thing is, the average was Cramer plus 9% in terms of the polling average. The final results were Cramer plus 10.8%. The polling was only off by 1.8%, and it still predicted a Cramer victory by this margin. So that necessarily wasn't incorrect in terms of the polling data. North Dakota had pretty accurate data. Looking back at 2012, Rick Berg pretty much just underperformed. So Heitkamp overperformed by 3%. That's not what we saw in this election, but Kevin Cramer only led by 1.8% more than what the polling suggested. So if we go back to when Heidi Heitkamp led in February, if that election came true, she could have won that re-election bid. But I'm not trying to take away attention from the GOP's victory here. This was a phenomenal victory. Their biggest victory out of all of the swing states. And keep in mind, the state of North Dakota with a Democratic incumbent went more Republican than Missouri, than Indiana, than Florida, which all three have Democratic incumbents, but also then Texas, then Arizona, then Nevada. Just not Tennessee. In fact, we actually could check on Tennessee right now just to compare it. But Tennessee pretty much went for Marsha Blackburn by a pretty good amount. That is pretty considerable considering that this race was supposed to be contested. North Dakota was never contested since February. It was always supposed to go to the GOP, and Heidi Heitkamp made consistent mistakes throughout her entire election, that her re-election bid, that this was just her race to lose, and she lost it before the election even began. So right now, Kevin Cramer going on to become the next senator from North Dakota, and North Dakota will have 2 Republicans in office, and there likely won't be a Democrat in the future winning any of the statewide elected positions, including senator, representative, or governor, unless a new old type of Democrat that's popular before possibly runs maybe in 2020. But 2022 and thereon, it'll likely still remain in that Republican column just because of identity politics, the way that it's voted in this year, especially with it being a Democratic wave year, and voting for a GOP candidate by over 10%. Again, very, very important big win for the GOP because North Dakota likely was one of those few states that the Democrats needed to take back the Senate, and the GOP, in fact, is going to gain seats in the United States Senate at the end of the day. So North Dakota, Kevin Cramer at 55%, Heidi Heitkamp at 44.6%. Again, looking at the difference between 2018 and 2012, what is the true difference? Now, Heidi Heitkamp wasn't exactly as unpopular as she is now. She just wasn't known. So if that really makes sense in the argument that people didn't necessarily dislike her, they may have had a neutral opinion on her, which makes them more inclined to vote for someone. You're more inclined to vote for someone you sure know their policies just a little bit, but you don't know them truly as a person or how they actually vote compared to someone you actively dislike. So when we're looking at the numbers, just based off them alone, Heidi Heitkamp probably did better in 2012 because she wasn't as known. She is one of those few Democrats that actually puts down her Democratic foot in the United States Senate. Like Kavanaugh. If she had voted for Kavanaugh, the numbers likely would have been different. But she didn't need to vote against Kavanaugh either. It's not like it blocked him from being confirmed. With or without her, he was going to be confirmed. And if she truly wanted to play the long game and truly worried about her re-election bid, she likely would have voted in favor of Brett Kavanaugh just to save her own skin. But she did not do that. So the map went from this to this. Okay, this is what she could have had if she was able to win. This is a 50.2% margin. That's it. One of the narrowest of margins you can win by, 50.2%, 161,000 votes. This time around, she got 143,000 votes. So she has gone down from where she was before. She's more well known now. People know her policies better now. So, again, she wasn't as known in terms of where she is now. Yeah, you do know some of your statewide positions, statewide elected officials, which she was one of them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she was known throughout the entire state. She was just a Democrat who holds a little bit more conservative policies in respect to other Democrats that makes her seem very much better, better in comparison to other Democrats, like Joe Manchin. If you put him amongst Democrats, he seems way more conservative than them, but compared to other Republicans, maybe not so much. We're looking at a state itself that is very conservative, especially in presidential elections. The Senate elections, I don't know why they didn't see this one coming, but this one overwhelmingly went to the Republican Party. Over 10% is a large margin, especially against an incumbent. So if we're looking at the 2018 Senate map from Real Clear Politics, that's why this one was already rated as a pickup for the GOP, and no pickups were for the Democratic Party. So looking at the numbers, that is one of those states that were sort of crucial to the Democrats taking back the Senate, but as soon as North Dakota went after other states went. So the Democrats already knew they weren't taking back or holding on to their numbers. So North Dakota went to Kevin Cramer. That was expected by everyone, but it's just very surprising the accuracy of polling in the state of North Dakota for whatever reason, even though it's a very, very dispersed state. If you just get bigger cities because they may have all the similar landline numbers, whatever it may be, polling could be inaccurate in the state, but for some reason it was just around spot on in terms of the margin. Only 1.8% off, but still predicted the winner by a pretty good amount. Very interesting that Heidi Heitkamp did exactly what the polling data suggested. I mean, if we're looking at the numbers then, going over to the state of North Dakota, 55.4% for Kevin Cramer. He had 52.5%. Heitkamp had 43.5% in polling. She finished off with 44.6%. But again, looking at the overall numbers, Big win for the GOP, not trying to draw away from that. Heidi Heitkamp definitely could have done a number of things differently. Polling data was extremely accurate. Looking back at 2012, we're not seeing a repeat at all. 2012 was just different because of Barack Obama, most likely. And at this point in time, Heidi Heitkamp is probably hated a lot more than she was back then. So that wraps up today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.